Hey everybody, this is Leland Bartlett with Ripboard Training Consulting, and today the title of our video is Creating Function Out of Chaos. And what I mean by that is that we're going to take two files that are in text formatting and we're going to combine them together into one worksheet. And then we're going to take another formatting of a text document and we're going to do the same thing. And these are from my two applications that I use. One is from Strong, and it exports into a text or a comma separated value file, and Lose It does the same thing. It exports data into a comma separated value, and I want to bring those into Excel. We're going to do these two different formats and bring them in and show you how to do that. In addition, after we set that formatting process up, we're going to bring in a third one, and you can see how it's going to take it from where it is to where we want it to be. Okay, before we get going, I just want to show you the format of these files so that you understand that they are text files. So I got those up in my text editor, and you can see here's the Lose It format, and you can see that they are not formatted in columns and the data is separated by a semicolon. So this is a actual comma separated value, a CSV file. And Strong, even though it is a CSV, you can see it's similar in the sense its data is separated by a semicolon, and it can take both of these into the same worksheet, and we'll be able to do that and bring it in and bring in a third file eventually and bring that in, and it will follow the format we set for these previous two, which is really cool. So let's move forward. So here's the files we're going to be working with. I'm going to combine the two files from my Lose It application into one worksheet, and I'm going to combine the two files from my workout application Strong into one file, and then we'll show you how to bring additional files in and then how to relate these two files through a common field. Let's do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up Excel and choose Data from my Data tab, and I'm going to say Get Data From over in the Get and Transform Data. Choose From File from a folder. So I'm just looking to point to a folder, not to a specific file. And it comes into Admin OneDrive where my files are located, and I'm going to choose the Lose It logs first. Open that up. Notice again there's no files because it's just looking for a directory. I'm going to click Open, and what it's going to do is it's going to look into that folder and look for data. You can see here it's connecting or finding the information that I sent it to look for. And here we go. Here's the two files that are in there. Tells you where it is, gives you the record, the type, binary, and we're going to choose Combine and Transform. That means I'm going to combine these two files into one, and I want to transform it into a format that is consistent for files that come in after this to be formatted like. So it's picked up the files. You can see both of them will be right there. There's the two different files, 58 and 65. And it figured out that it was formatted by a comma and automatically formatted it for us in the associated columns. And it's looking at, I believe it's just the first 200 rows. It doesn't look at everything to get an idea of what the file should be formatted like. And if you like what you see, you can go ahead and simply click OK. So here's what we have. Up here we have our ribbon like we do in Excel. Does lots of things to help us transform the data. Over on the left is our query that's extracting the data, and the really cool part over here on the right under the query settings is applied steps. That means everything we change on here is recorded step by step, which is cool because you can actually reverse a step, and you can even reverse a step that is in the middle here. It gives you a warning it may affect the outcome, but still you can do that if you did something you don't want to do or didn't mean to do. So for example, the first thing I want to do is get rid of unnecessary columns, and then the first one is the source name. It's the same for every row, so I'm going to go ahead and just remove that column, and then watch what happens over on the right under the query settings. Notice it says remove columns over there. Now watch if I click on the X it comes back. It's as easy as that. Remove columns. Now, there's a lot of data in here that I don't use, and there's some data in here that makes my calculations not work, such as NA or null. It doesn't work on a number field. Notice also up in the top left, just real quick, up in the top left hand corner of each of the column names, that's actually your data type. You can click there to change it if it did not bring it in the way that you want it to. But I'm going to go ahead and edit this down a little bit because I only use 3 or 4 of these columns. Well, here's one. It says it's deleted, so we'll just go ahead and get rid of that in this particular set and upcoming new sets. And I only use calories, fat, protein, and carbs right now. So all the rest of this stuff is just simply extra data that I don't use. And I'm going to remove those columns as well. It's got calories, fats, proteins, carbohydrates. That's the things that I use. Now I'm going to fix a couple things while I'm here, and that is that this NA causes some issues later on with calculations. Notice that this is saying that it's a text field. It's not, and if I try and change it to a decimal field, it gives me errors. And right here is the percentage of fields that were successful, and the other is percentage of cells that were not successful. So the red is not successful. So I'm going to change that back to text. And that's another interesting thing you just saw there, is it says, hey, if this is a repetitive step, do you want to put in a new step or just redo the other step that you just did? Now this is a little redundant here, but as far as having to do it per column, but I can replace the NA, and what I do with that is I just right click on it and choose replace value, and then when it comes up I just simply type in a 0. That way it makes my calculations work, and I can change that field to a numeric field. So I'm just going to type in 0 there. Notice that I don't have to select the entire column. It automatically does it in the column that I'm in. And I'm going to do the same thing here again. Replace values with 0. And I'm going to do it here. And this one is L. Well, okay, so now when I change these fields from text to decimal, they should be 100% this time. And you can see that the green line looks like it goes almost all the way across. I may have null values, so we got to do the null values too. It's possible you could try and clean this up before you import it, but it's pretty simple to do it here. There's another null value there. We'll just replace those values. And if you wonder if you have them, you can see if they're in your data. I don't see them. I do see blanks, but I don't see nulls. And it's not giving me 100%. 7% empty. So we could replace the empties with a 0. Oops, with a 0 as well. That way we get 100% going across here. So that's how you're able to bring in the data. Now watch what happens here is I simply want to, if I want to see it in Excel, I just choose load, close and load. And what that's going to do is close the editor and bring it into Excel automatically for me into a worksheet. And there we go. And over on the right here are your queries and connections. And this is telling you that you have a connection to this data through this connection right here. And if you want to, you can get back to the editor by placing your mouse on here and just choose edit. Again, it gives you a preview. You can refresh by clicking the icon here if you got new data or you change things. Now one of the things I noticed here is it's interesting. If you want to keep everything the common, in other words, I have February at the top and I can change this here, but because the data is taken from the query, from the raw data, when I refresh it's going to come back into that same format. So if I want to change how this is sorted by date, come over here and I'm going to choose edit. I'm going to go back to that editor and I'm simply going to sort the data in descending order. Okay, and that way it always will come in that way. Notice that over here on the right it told me that it sorted the rows, so that's an action that it will take when it brings in new data. And then again I'm going to close and load from in descending order. Now let's bring in the other data, and we can do it right here in the same worksheet. We simply go to data again, get file, from folder. And this time I'm going to choose workouts. Open. It's going to look for files in there. It's going to do the same process. It's going to make a connection, it's going to evaluate, and then it's going to give a brief overview. So here's the two files, strong, and where it's located. We're going to choose combine and transform. And there it is. It knows that it's a semicolon delimited file. It automatically picked our column headers for us, looked at the first 200 rows, and here's our two files. We can choose either one and it will reevaluate it. See, it does a preview for the other file also based on the first 200 rows. So here it is. It gave us a preview. We like it. Looks the same. We click OK. And it's going to open up the query editor and we can start transforming that data. All right, there we go. Again, it gives us our source name. It's a column I don't use. So I'm going to click on it and choose remove. The data format here, this has the date and the time. I just simply want the date, so I'm going to choose just date on there. That's gone. And then there's a few columns that I still don't use in here. One is the weight units. I know it's going to be pounds, and holding down the control key I can choose other fields such as distance in seconds. That's for aerobics things, and I don't keep track of those in here, and I don't have the notes in here. I just want the reps and the weight for the most part, and the duration. And so I'm going to remove those columns. And remember, over here on the right, it keeps track of what you do, so you can undo it or even edit it. If it has a little, I guess, gear off to the right, you can actually edit what it did there. And make sure all the data types are correct. Weights, reps are all numeric. I have an RPE and they're null. Now there is one thing that is in here that I believe I do not want, and let's take a look at that. And that is I'm not seeing it in here, but I've seen it in here previously, so let's don't see it. Just give me a second here and see if and sometimes the list is not complete, so I'm going to go ahead and choose load more, and I'll show you something that's really kind of cool. Oh, well, here's the main thing right there. See where it says elliptical machine? That is an aerobic exercise that I do that I don't want in here. I keep track of that separately. So I'm just going to deselect that out of here. So now if I have that in future workouts, it's automatically going to filter that out. So I don't have to filter it out manually within the application. That's about it, I believe. Let's take a look at it. And there it is. And here's our two queries that we have and we're working with. And now we'll do some additional magic with the Power Query Editor of how we can relate that data together. Well, that's it for me, guys, in this video. I hope you found the value in how to bring text files into Excel a lot simpler than you have expected or have done before. This is a real life scenario which I use almost every day. In our next video, we're going to take a look at the ability to create custom or grouping queries from the original data so we don't lose it. And then once we get that grouping together, we're going to create some calculated columns, such as like percent fat, protein, carbs, and my effort and sets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take these two grouping queries and we're going to merge them together through a common field, which is the date. And I want to find out what my effort was and what my calorie intake or my nutritional intake was on a specific date that I had to work out. And we'll look at how to do that. Appreciate being here. Again, this is Leland Bartlett from Ripboard Training Consulting. Thanks for being here. Until next time, we'll see ya.